Welcome to the DJVonFire podcast. I am your host, David Joshua Vales, producing as always, or at least most of the time, my son, Jonathan Andrew Vales. Jonathan, say what's up.
What's up?
The guest today, joining me for my first ever dinner with DJV. We just finished a nice little meal here together, and so we're going to roll right into the podcast. Alexander Wayne Phillips. Welcome to the podcast.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. As we get rolling here, we did just have. So what this means, by the way, is we're just gonna. I mean, everything's kind of just like on the fly. Everything's on the fly, but this is a little bit more. It's a late night. We both worked hard. Grab some fast food. Nowadays, you can speak to this. I know we're getting off on a bad topic here, or a different topic. Nothing that we talked about prior. But
that's right.
Like growing up, like fast food is like McDonald's, Burger King, and now there's like a middle ground. Don't you feel like what we share, like what we had here for dinner, is kind of like a. I won't ask you to say what you said, but
I'll say
it. Go ahead, because you're not the first person to say it.
About Chipotle?
Yes, about Chipotle.
I said it was Mexican food for white people, by white people, for white people, is what I said.
And I love me some Chipotle. So, but I feel like that Culver's to me is one that's in between. It's like a little upgrade from McDonald's there. You can get some real meals there if you search a little bit at Culver's.
Yeah, it's funny you even bring this up because your son and I have been working on a ranking system for probably a few months now.
Did not know this.
Yeah, so we have this ranking system for restaurants and or different foods, dishes, etc. Like for example, cheeseburgers might be a category, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an A through an F rating system, and it's all relative to one another. So for example, a B-rated fast food restaurant is not going to be as good as a B-rated 5-star restaurant, for example, right?
True. In
our ranking system, though, no fast food restaurant can possibly be an A, period. There's not, if it's a nice enough restaurant to be an A, it's not fast food. So we can get into all that in person. If you're ever curious, hit me up. We'll talk about it. It's a little complex to get into right now.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where does Culver's fall then? Did we grade this one? Do we have a Culver's rating?
I would, so yes, there's a tier of fast food restaurant that is above regular fast food restaurant, and that's kind of your B ratings, right? So okay. I would personally put Culver's in something like a B minus category, whereas like your McDonald's, your Burger King, your Arby's, that's like going to be more along the lines of a D rating, right? And that's not to say it's not good and that you don't go and enjoy it, but okay. You got to recognize it for what it is.
Yeah, that was my point. This was not a planned discussion. It just kind of, once we started talking about Chipotle, and then we run and roll on it, and I just feel like there's more options than when we were a kid.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for the options.
Right.
In the last year when I gave up fast food, it was I must have given up D ratings.
Okay.
So when I said I was giving up fast food, it wasn't just every kind of restaurant. Although I did limit it to what I had. It was I don't know if I want to say treat, but it was once in a while. It wasn't, something I got all the time. It was like, okay, here I'm going to treat myself. Had a good couple of weeks. Let's go out to Culver's.
There you go.
Which is B rating, which isn't too bad.
Yeah, and it's subjective, of course. I mean, somebody might disagree. They might put it as C, right?
But you left a little gray area in the middle.
Yeah. So for fast foods, C-rated fast food restaurant would be, I'd say maybe something like a Wendy's, right? It's better. It's a step up above Burger King. Everything's a step up above Burger King, first of all. Yeah, Wendy's I think is a strong C. Maybe Jimmy John's.
He said strong C.
Yeah.
Jimmy John's is a C?
I would say.
Because some people are going to argue it's A minus.
It can't be an A.
It's not me.
No.
I mean,
if it's fast food, it cannot be an A.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways.
Even though you're not comparing it to 5-star restaurants.
Exactly. Yeah. Within the category fast food,
nothing is an A.
Nothing is an A.
Okay.
Period.
Anyways, got away off topic. A couple things I want to talk about. Again, if you remember the podcast, which if you could hit subscribe and notifications, notification just gives you a bell on Monday mornings that the podcast is released, it's dropped. You know, you can click on it, go check it out. Give this one a thumbs up even before you hear us talk right now.
Commenting helps the algorithm.
Yeah, check out those comments. Throw that in there and give us your comments below on what your rating is. Some of the restaurants we mentioned. Is it B, C, D? Would you have to throw some fast foods into the A? Go ahead and comment. Just get that thing rolling down there. But two things. One is obviously I want to get to know everybody at second place, and I want you to get to know everybody at second place. But two is just to be able to share about myself as well. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Now, I mentioned to you, because you're born and bred Monee.
Yes, sir.
Literally, like from.
I was born in Hazel Crest, lived in Madison,
okay.
But as a baby, we moved to Monee.
Okay, so I'm from this little bit more southwest, north of you, but southwest area of Chicago, and so I've always appreciated, even when I was younger, I appreciated I go on vacation, and maybe you could speak to this, but like I go on vacation, someone goes, "Where are you from?" I just say Chicago. Did you have that liberty to say that if you're from Monee? Did you say?
I would say hour south of Chicago is normally what I tell people. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not an hour, but it's easier to say an hour than 50 minutes or 45 minutes. You know.
Right. So I would say Chicago. Then, unfortunately, the first thing they say, I still remember this. I was young, 7, 8, 9, and I'm like, I'm from Chicago. And then the kid I was talking to was like, "Oh, that's where murders happened."
Pretty much.
But what bothers me about that, and you know, if you turn on the news nowadays, like that's what they say. But there's so much more that you've had the opportunity, or you can get in Chicago if you go down there and have the arts and the music and that type of thing. It's literally, you say 50 minutes, it's less than an hour to get to one of the biggest cities in the United States. I think New York City, I think LA, and I think Chicago.
I think they are I think they're top 3, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's growing. There's usually one in Florida, you could say, but Miami maybe, but it's not quite. When you're talking city-wide, it's like that. But then where I'm living at, though, it's still, you know, I still have my own community. I'd say middle class is where I was, lower middle class, depending on what you talk about. Neighborhoods, obviously, were that. But I went to Richards High School, which then my friends are from Robbins, Cal Park. You know, we got the Southside Irish Parade on March 17th. Everybody's Irish on March 17th. Go a little bit more southwest. I'm in Joliet. And then I got a job in Peatone. I can't say that I went south very often, but my second teaching job was in Peatone High School, and that's straight down 57. And as soon as you cross over I-80, like, I didn't even know we did farming in this area, but it's literally less, like, from my house, 12 minutes to get to your neighborhood. So
yeah,
speak about all that. You could speak about like just staying and not heading into Chicago. You could talk about like what you felt like growing up where you grew up. Did you feel like you had all those same kind of experiences, or how did you grow up? Just give us a quick little childhood experience.
So I grew up in actually unincorporated Monee, southwest side. I was in Peatone High School, and yeah, not busy, nothing going on really. A lot of farmland, not really a lot of neighbors at the time. I mean, more and more people have built, and the appeal is there for a lot of people to kind of get away from, you know, the neighborhoods, the towns, or whatever. But yeah, small town, not a lot going on.
Did you head up to Chicago a lot? Did you not really?
Not really. Let's see here. Maybe a couple times a year for a school field trip or something. But I want to say I got a job in college working downtown, actually, at a law firm, and I'd commute up there every day during the summer and winter when I was not in school.
Yep.
And yeah, I didn't like it.
Oh, you didn't like it down? No. Too busy? Too crowded? Too fast?
Yeah. Too loud. Smells bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of good things to say about Chicago.
Yeah, teach their own. I mean,
exactly.
And But like, I could say that I was more of a city person. I don't care to go all the way downtown, and I mean I go down again there are things down there that I think everybody just needs to you know entertain, appreciate, check out once in their life maybe. But then heading south, it's when I was a teacher, I mean that first time pulling in the parking lot, and all of a sudden here come the pickup trucks with the American flag on the back, or like two kids pulling up in their tractor.
I was going to ask if
that like
if
blew me away. That
yeah,
like
they had drive your tractor to school day.
And I mean, oh for sure, yeah, drive your tractor to school day, and these are the kids I'm teaching, and it's just I appreciate it from where I'm at, like having those two sides of the world, and not only like culturally, but like economically, and low income, high income, middle income. Like I made sure that I was aware. I didn't, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, but I'll talk first. So, my favorite movie is The Blues Brothers. So start thinking about your favorite movie. The Blues Brothers, for those that don't know, it was in the early '80s. It actually was a skit on Saturday Night Live with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, and they were just singers. But the movie starts out with him in Joliet jail, and then
that was the first our movie I ever watched.
I was going to bring that up because well, I'll keep going, but you're right. But they have Aretha Franklin, and they have Ray Charles, and James Brown, and my kids. I made sure my kids watch it. Now I grew up watching it on limited cable television, which means it was all the edited versions of it. So when I watched it with my parents, like that's what it was. So I always say it's my favorite movie. Do I think it's cinematographically? I made that word up. But like, is it technically the best movie around? Probably not. But to me, it's like this is my childhood. It's driving from Joliet to downtown Chicago, and they grew up in an orphanage, and I believe it was Calumet City, and then all around you're seeing that kind of culture, and so that's what I appreciate. So with that said, you could either speak to Blues Brothers, but what is your favorite movie?
That question. It's a common question. I don't know that I really have one. I'm a fan of Clint Eastwood. I like a lot of Clint Eastwood movies. I like Will Ferrell. For a while, I would say high school, college age Alex, his favorite movie was bar none Step Brothers.
Wow, speaking of R-rated movie.
Yeah, right.
But you said you're younger, Alex.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's funny, right? Mm-hmm. I don't officially recommend it as a member of the church, right?
The views and opinions of Alex and David are not those of Joe DeCenzo or the church. Second place.
Yes.
All right, continue.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say one of my favorite movies is Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood.
Okay.
That's a good one. There's some action, a lot of funny, just kind of one-liners.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I know I put you. I'm getting you with a lot. We talked probably like an hour beforehand, and I haven't hit him with one question that I asked him beforehand. But I just kind of like this is what you get with dinner with DJV.
Yep.
A little unscriptedness. I think I made that word up again. We met. This is what I was trying to remember. We met. You had volunteered to help out with boot camp with the youth, or you had just started to be a youth coach.
Yes, or sponsor, as we call it.
Sponsor, as you call it. And so I went and they had me talk on a Wednesday. Do you remember what I talked about?
During boot camp, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, it was the squirrel story.
The squirrel story, and our house getting attacked by squirrels. But then I was able to roll it into a point. I had a point to it, but it was something that, like, they had asked me about a month before that, like, can you talk at boot camp? And I'm like, oh, sure, and you start to read, and you want to make sure you know the Bible and have a story and have a point, and what's the. And then the squirrel, I just couldn't get this story out of my head. I'm like, why is this stuck in my head? And so. We'll have to talk about it some other time. But you came up after I was done. You introduced yourself. You're like, hey, thanks for sharing. Great story. I'm Alex, and that's kind of how we met. How long had you helped? I think I said you just kind of were starting. So you've been helping at Second Place Youth for a couple of years. What if that's true.
Not at that point.
Not at that point.
No. That first boot camp, I had been helping like maybe 2 months.
Just had started. Okay, yeah. And you're still continuing to do it.
Correct.
What brings you to? Why are you helping out? Why is that something that you've been drawn to? Did you volunteer, or did someone ask you?
I did. I came forward and was like, hey, this is something I want to do. Long story short, I would say I am a product of all the people that had spent years investing in me when I was young. People who didn't give up on me when I wasn't getting it. And because of that, it's like, well, if it weren't for those people, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt, for several years, I felt an obligation to be that person for the young people in my life. Before starting at Second Place, I was a part of another church for a long time, also in Monee. And I'd been helping with the youth group for several years at that point, I want to say. I was helping with Awana as well. And so I've had this burden that it's like, we need people in the church to step up and invest in young people besides just their own children.
Mm-hmm.
Because mom and dad, I think, can say all they want, they can do all they want, but there are things that are just not going to stick with their kids because, oh, well, you're my mom and dad, you're just trying to control me, And so I think it's necessary for people to invest in other people's children in order to reinforce those good things that mom and dad are teaching, and also maybe to even supplement the things that mom and dad aren't teaching that should be.
Mm-hmm.
That led me to my involvement at my other church. At the time, I was not gonna lie, I was getting a little burnt out helping with Awana. I'd been doing that for a while, and I was helping with little kids, and at the time I'm helping with youth group as well. I'm like, I kind of like this a little bit better. I think I need to focus more so I can be more effective.
Correct.
In that realm, So Awana was going during the school year, and the school year was ending, and so we were going to have the summer off. And I was like, I'll maybe chip in and help with the youth group at Second Place for the summer. And my intent was actually to then at the end of the summer leave and go back to helping with Awana. A couple weeks in, I was like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stay here, I think. So that's when I started. I started at the same time as your daughter Kaylee. And then when I started, David, your son David, was in my group.
Yeah.
So I think actually that's why I introduced myself to you, because at that point I had known Johnny just from Saturday night services and your wife and Ethan,
mm-hmm.
your youngest son. And I had known basically all of you guys except for you. So when you spoke at boot camp, I was like, I ought to just finish the job.
Yeah. So we appreciate it, and when you introduced yourself, then all of a sudden I could put a name to a face, because David and Jonathan had talking about Alex at youth. I'm going, who's this Alex guy?
There you go.
And at that point, were you playing in the band? Were you rocking the bass?
Yeah.
What do you play, first of all?
I play bass. That's my best instrument.
Okay.
At my other church that I was a part of for many years, I would also fill in on acoustic guitar and drums periodically. But here we're flush with musicians, and so I stick with bass.
So I saw you up there, and I think that was it 2 years ago, or was that more recent?
What,
that you started playing?
I was playing on Saturday nights,
okay.
Almost. So let's see. I started going to the church about 3.5 years ago in September or October, I want to say.
Yeah.
And then it was maybe about 6 months before I started playing in the band, only on Saturdays. And then only recently have I played on a Sunday. I want to say I started in the summer.
Okay.
So the other church I've been a part of for a long time, when everybody shut down for COVID, they did too. And Second Place happened to just kind of open up first. So I was like, do I want to sit at my house, by myself watching church on the internet, or do I want to be going and being with people? So it's like, it's kind of an easy decision, and that's kind of where I just got sucked in, and I started playing on Sundays. And
so I do think I've seen you play. I mean, I would stop in on the Saturday nights. Whenever my Sunday was going to be busy. You knew David was a volleyball player, so tournaments we kind of were out and about or whatever we had. So just to keep everybody a warning, we've been safe so far, but dinner at DJV's, we have a wild animals. The cat wouldn't leave us alone during dinner. The 150-pound dog would be all underneath this table shaking it to death. So we've lucked out, but I'm just letting you know, like, don't be surprised if you see some wild thing come around or craziness happen. Because this is the quietest our house has been probably in years. But so I did want to say, because I didn't tell you, like,
helps
in person,
that Kaylee's gone.
but on camera, Kaylee is gone, yes. That I do appreciate having you kind of be a mentor for both Jonathan and David, and hopefully eventually Ethan, if you're still sticking around doing that aspect of it. But you said you felt like that's right now, that's what the Lord's calling you to do, is just kind of be a part of the youth and be a mentor. And I always talk about that subconscious conscious, and what happens is you listen to your parents so much that it just becomes part of your subconscious to listen to them, and you may not hear what they truly have to say. And so to have you come in there, all of a sudden consciously they make a switch and go like, let me hear what this guy has to say. And so I appreciate you being that example of what a, how do I say that, like let's take it easy here, but like how a man needs to act, how like as a Christian you could still be what people consider to be a man, you know what I mean? Like, and so here you are, I had you sharpen my knives, not that you need to sharpen knives to be a man, but you said you were working on some.
You need to have sharp knives.
You do need to have sharp knives, and I love to cook, and I need sharp knives, and you're like, hey, let me try it out. You still say it's a secret technique, right? Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you never told me how you did it, but you took them and they came back nice and sharp. You love guns, right? You're a gun guy. We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But more importantly, besides that, but like just loving Jesus and the Lord and that type of thing is what I've appreciated with you. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on here, not to say thank you in person, like on camera, like that's the only reason. All right, wrap it up, Jonathan. But just because I think that's important for them. Like anytime, David will call and ask me a question, and then he's like, and I don't know if how often you still hear from him being at college, but he'd be like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go talk to Alex. You know what I mean? Or like if you. Do you try to reach out to certain people? Do you have your own group right now of youth, or I know it's a little bit different now that we're.
Yeah. So when we moved to camp, I think a lot of guys seem to take that as an excuse to quit going.
Yeah.
So I ended up basically with one steady guy from my group who's still actively participating. I've had a couple guys who pop in every now and then. And then, not to mention, I lost a bunch of seniors last year too. Sam and his friend, David and his friend Sam, rather. Max, Hayden moved back to Washington, so my group just lost 4, and then the other guys. And Micah's group lost a few participants as well, so we actually just combined them. So what did you ask?
So, like, did you?
Oh, do I have my own group? Is what you said.
Not that you have your own group. Like, how do you make it a point to reach out to them? Like, if you haven't seen them a couple of weeks, or how do you stay connected? Do you go out to have meals with them, or do you say, hey, I haven't seen you in a while? Like, what kind of additional, other than like having them in your group, or even when they were there, like, what kind of plan did you have to stay connected with them? Or wasn't a plan? Like,
I'd say plan is the word. Plan is generous.
Yeah.
I really don't. I personally believe that God will bring to mind somebody that I need to reach out to, and I try to obey that faithfully. So, because again, some people maybe they haven't been there because they need space, and reaching out would only be worse. So it's like I don't want to just plow my way into somebody's life if that's going to turn them off. Whereas other people might have been away and they're thinking I'm not going to go back until so and so reaches out to me. So, I mean, if somebody's not been there for a few weeks, I'll try to at least say, hey, miss you. Hope you're doing all right. Let me know if you want to get together. And because not everybody wants to be at youth group specifically, but that doesn't mean that they don't want that connection or um, a mentor type relationship with somebody. So it's just trying to figure out what people want, what people need, and what people are willing to do, knowing what they need.
Yeah. The reason I ask is, like, and you said you don't really have a plan. It's not like I say, "Hey, I'm going to meet them," but like it did seem like the timing of like when you would connect, when they would say, I just talked to Alex, or Jonathan will say, like, I'm going to hang out with Alex. It seemed like it was on my end. It's like something I saw, and then I'm like, perfect. I'm glad that they're going to go hang out with him, because I know a conversation's going to be had, whatever it is, and whether it's super deep or not, very superficial. I just know that as a dad, it's like they could talk to me as much as I want, or as much as they want, and then eventually it's got to happen to someone else is probably gonna have to pick that, which is to your point to that. So something
it
I
takes
appreciate.
A village, man.
I
believe that
it does take a village, and just different angles, like just different things that maybe you recognize in them, that you've picked up after dealing with them for some time. I'm gonna sidetrack.
Sure.
Did you ever pick up on the Cubs or the Sox or the Bears or the Bulls being 50 minutes out?
I don't care about sports.
Doesn't sports at all.
The only sport I enjoy is fighting.
Fighting?
Yes.
Like UFC?
Whatever. Yes.
Do you like to fight?
I used to fight more than I do now. I would love to now. It's just a matter of finding another consenting opponent.
Someone to fight.
No, but my little brother, he was always down. We'd throw on some gloves and we'd go out in the yard because we didn't want to break anything in the house, and we would just fist fight in the yard, whatever. But he lives in Champaign now, and so
you don't get to fight very often.
No.
Just thought I'd throw that out there. What are some of the other things we wanted to talk about? Working, you work a lot of hours.
More recently, we got a large order for a few. So I worked for a company that makes pizza topping equipment. So basically, any frozen pizza that you've bought in the U.S. was made on our equipment, whether it's DiGiorno's or Home Run Inn or Jack's or whatever. It's all pretty much made on our stuff. And so we had a couple orders come in for some big lines, and my boss told me and the other engineer, hey, we need you to start working 7 to 5:30, and then 7 to noon on Saturdays. So that's been going for about the last month. I'm hoping it'll be done next week, because I submitted my last machine yesterday that I had to do, and so did my coworker and friend, my Sam. Shout out to Sam. He was at church last week.
Okay.
He came for the first time.
Nice.
So, yeah. But yeah, so I don't know where you were going with that question. I don't remember.
We're just trying to get to know people.
Work.
Well, the irony of it, and the reason I brought it up, because we talked about it a little bit behind, be like, you're in the midst of a little, and again, he wouldn't want to, like, if you asked him, he probably wouldn't want to say this, forthright, because it's making sacrifices. It should be more of a personal thing, but because he's on the podcast while he's in the midst of it, is you gave up pizza.
I did give up
for
pizza.
a little bit of time here. So the fact that you work for a company that makes equipment that makes pizza, then you're not even eating pizza.
They catered Aurelio's for us on Wednesday.
Oh.
Today's Friday, 26th. It was 2 days ago. I don't know when this will air.
So you had pizza?
I did not. No. I sat there and everybody else ate pizza.
It's been like 10 days. You're giving it up for the 40 days that we're in.
Yeah.
Joe said never to use dates, so I try not to use dates. But
my bad. Sorry, Joe. Fight me.
So no, that was why I brought that up, just so that where you work and then what you do, and then the fact that you sacrifice some pizza. As part of a longer, it's our kind of our Lent focus. It's our sacrifice focus. The focus lately has been on the Holy Spirit. You talked about yourself, about like hearing, listening for when God's talking to you about what He wants you to do, and you even talked about making plans in the future. You're like, it's more like and what I just kind of read is like, it's more like in pencil,
right?
Because you want to be ready or we're willing or listening to where the Lord calls. You just want to expand a little bit on that for them?
Sure.
In the words that you use rather than what I just try to summarize.
I'm trying. Do you remember any specific words I used that I should try and use again?
Well, the question for you was, what big goals do you have in your life?
Sure.
And then you kind of went.
I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit of a loser in that regard, that I don't really have too many goals. I've got a few that I'm working towards that I don't necessarily care to share, because anybody can talk about goals.
Yeah.
What's it matter until you achieve them, you know? So for that reason, I do try to keep some of that private.
Yeah, and I've heard that aspect a lot. Like, if you have a goal, that just has between you and the goal,
right?
Because other people don't need to know that. So I appreciate that.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have any kind of grand vision for my life. I mean, I got some crude things that I would like to eventually happen. For example, I would love a wife and kids one day.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to buckle down and focus so hard on achieving something that I miss what's happening around me, or if I'm set on making this thing happen, but God's trying to pull me over here to do this other thing. I don't want to miss that, because I've blinded myself to what it is I think I want. So yeah.
I don't want to over philosophize. I'm making up.
You can't do that. You can't over philosophize.
I can't.
Nah.
You appreciate that?
Yeah.
I
love philosophy.
Because I feel like when you say someone's down to earth, to me, you're just a down to earth type of person. Like, that person is living in the moment. They're not worried about the future. They're not living in the past. I just feel, and you may not. That's the vibe you give off to me as a person. I don't know if you appreciate the vibe, or do you find yourself worrying about the past or looking in the future, or no, you literally you just take it a day at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jesus is really clear throughout the Gospels that the most important day to God is today. I mean, of course, there are things I think that we need to learn from the past, and I think there are preparations we need to make for the future. But in general, I think it matters more, what are you doing right now? I mean, he says, nobody knows the hour that the Son of Man will return, and he gives many illustrations about, how the bridegroom leaves, to prepare a place for his bride, and we don't know when the bridegroom is coming back. And it says that, his friends should stay up, vigilant, waiting, so that when he returns, they're ready. And it's like, so we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We're not guaranteed our next breath, the next day. So for me, it's like, yeah, I want to think about the future and what it could look like, what it should look like. What should I be doing now so that the future is better, not just my future, but the future of our towns, our state, our country, and so forth. But to me, today is it. Again, past is important, future is important.
Yeah.
But really, I think it's today.
Mm-hmm. I asked you what kind of music you listen to. We've covered movies here on the whim, but we asked you what kind of music, and then you said you drove here without anything playing. You're all right with being in silence.
Yes, I do like music, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to. I don't want to just default to putting something on to fill the air.
Yeah.
I think that's not always wise. I think that can, if you don't leave room for thought, when are you going to think? And so, but music, anyways, music. I would say I fell in love with music when I was in junior high. I was 7th grade, and I found my dad's old stash of rock and roll. The main one that I really liked was Black Sabbath. So because of Black Sabbath, I asked my parents for a guitar for Christmas. Got an electric guitar, learned every Black Sabbath song I could learn. And as I was listening to it, I was hearing something else going on in the background, and digging a little harder, I discovered Geezer Butler, their bass player. You know, he's a fantastic bass player, and so a couple years later, I ended up asking for a bass. I think for my birthday or something, they gave me some money that I was able to put towards a bass. Yeah. But yeah, so I fell in love with music, listening to rock and roll. Into high school, that kind of evolved into heavy metal. And then in college is when I really started kind of exploring other things. Somehow or another, I discovered Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. Which I prefer their older stuff because it's a little more funky, you know. And so that then kind of led me all the way over here to funk, and so I love funk music. A few years ago, a friend of mine introduced me to ska. That's probably one of my favorites is ska music. It's are you familiar?
You know I know ska, yeah.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's to me the best combination of punk rock, which I don't really care for honestly, but punk rock, reggae, and funk. So like the bass lines and everything, that's kind of straight out of funk. The drumming and sometimes the vocal styles are more from punk, and then the guitar is kind of that offbeat bar chords that you hear a lot in reggae. Yeah. It's just fun to listen to. It's fun to play. So
see, that's good music. I mean, you're talking funk. You're talking Chicago. You're talking the Blues Brothers when they're heading down there to see. Yeah. So funk music is good. But you say your dad's old stash.
Oh yeah.
Like, what are we talking on records? Are we talking cassettes?
Unfortunately, no. So he had a lot of records.
CDs.
Cassettes. He had a lot of records, but we didn't have a working record player, so I couldn't listen to it. I found and he had way more records than he did tapes, but I was limited to the tapes because that's what I had that would, a player for. So it was mostly Black Sabbath. He had a lot of Led Zeppelin for being a guy that didn't like Led Zeppelin. Oh. But I liked Led Zeppelin because I was listening to it. The Who, Aerosmith, Blue Oyster Cult, stuff like that.
You did have a line in that explanation, just so you know. Like, you're like, I started listening to Black Sabbath a little closer, and I started to hear something. Like, back in my old Pentecostal church, that line would mean something different about what you would hear in the music. But, like...
I didn't care for the lyrics, you mean?
Well, maybe. Just, supposedly there were hidden messages from Satan in heavy rock music.
That's not true.
I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying that, right. I tried to listen a little closer.
No, well, that's the thing, though. Most people don't, like, bass players get a lot of grief for basically doing nothing. Yeah. My dad told me a joke the other day. Actually, it might have been a couple weeks ago. It's a joke about this kid who, dad asked the kid, "What'd you learn in your first bass lesson?" He says, "Oh, I learned how to play, 4 A notes in a row." And then the dad goes, next week he goes, "Oh, what'd you learn in your lesson today?" He said, "I know how to play 3 D notes in a row." And then the third week, the son comes back and the dad asks, "What'd you learn in your third lesson?" He said, "I didn't go. I already had a gig." So a lot of people don't really, you don't hear a bass player. And I think, in my opinion, it seems most people, whatever instrument they play, that's kind of what they can hear. Yeah. That's what they can pick out the best in a song. Like drummers, I think can hear way more of what a drummer's playing in a song than I could. Similarly, I just kind of I caught Geezer Butler playing in the background. I was like, "What is that, man? That sounds really cool." Well,
do you just come through an amp or do you come through the soundboard? Like, does he control your sound?
Yeah, both.
Okay,
it comes
because
through the soundboard.
I don't even know if I remember coming up to you one Saturday after we met, or it was someone else. But like when he's on the sound,
he boosts me a little bit.
He gives the bass a little bit more, and I totally I catch into that. And I like all music, and I don't play any of those things. But like bass to me, like I see you guys back there, and sure. No, first of all, I go when you do have that song where you're just pulling one string over and over. I go, to me that sounds boring, but that's be tough to do to me for like a whole song. But then
because
when you let it
try
loose,
not to fall asleep.
Yeah. But then when there are songs that you see, you can kind of let it go, and
right.
I appreciate that kind of music or that part of it. what else did we want people to know before we got into the quotes? Anything else that you had on your mind as you were coming? We said that you didn't have your music on as you're going. You did say, because I just kind of want to stick with, he listens to music. It's not, he said that he didn't listen on his way here, but like you talked about having that time to think. You said you try to go camping as much as possible. It's something you enjoy.
Yeah.
Do you do it alone? Do you prefer it alone? Sometimes you got a buddy with you?
Typically alone, yeah.
Alone. And it's kind of a schedule, just get away.
I haven't lately. For a while, I was very diligent. I would go for several years. I want to say I was going camping at least one weekend a month, at least 1 week a year. Hot, cold, whatever.
Yeah. You rigged up your truck to just sleep in the back.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So sometimes I'd go backpacking, but at the time I had a truck with a long bed on it. I had a shell on the back of that. I built some furniture that I bolted in to the back. I had a bed on one side and a countertop on the other, storage underneath. And so sometimes I made some curtains for the windows and everything. So sometimes I'd go and I'd just hit the road and see how far I could get before turning around and coming back. Sleep in the back wherever I could pull over. But then other times, there's a few spots I like going backpacking. But I haven't been out the last probably couple of years very much.
Give me a good backpacking place. Where should someone hit up?
So I prefer national forests just because it's free. You don't have to. It's free. You can just pull over wherever you want. You can go wherever you want. And usually because there's no amenities or anything like that, there's usually the odds are good that you won't see anybody, which again I like. To me, that's the whole reason I'm getting out. That said, there's two spots. I'm not gonna. There's one in Southern Illinois in Shawnee National Forest. I would just say go check out Shawnee National Forest.
All right.
I don't want to tell you any more than that because that's my spot.
Okay. You're running.
I don't want people. I don't want to bump into anybody out there.
Okay.
But the other one is Nordhaus Dunes up in Michigan. It's on the west side of the state, kind of between like Ludington and Manistee. There's woods, there's beach, whatever you want. It's right there. You're riding the lake. Water's clear up there, and that's a good spot.
This is why we do these podcasts, just to get to know the people. Any of these hobbies. Now, obviously, you can't go with them, but he'll definitely have a conversation with you about these types of things, and you could share stories. Maybe give him a spot that you like to go or things you like to do. We talked about guns a little bit. What kind of hobbies? I mean, is guns your hobby? Or we don't have to talk about guns. That's not my point. But like,
I don't mind, but I know it's a polarizing.
Right. So, and subject. that's not. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's just an interesting. It's just something that's interesting, and people go to it. And whether you're a hunter or not, sometimes that kind of like gets you into. Just that field, that thought. So, like, what other hobbies do you have that you tend to do, or is that like camping is a hobby?
I haven't been in so long that I have.
So you don't even consider.
I don't even want to claim that right now. It's something I like to do, but the last time it's been a while. I like shooting. I like building. I built a few guns. I've helped other people build guns. I like the old kind of I like the small arms that were kind of the historical stuff, right? So the World War II rifles are cool. I built a couple kind of period correct ARs, like what would have been issued to soldiers from 40, 50 years ago, whatever. So I like the history of it. I like the satisfaction of building something and then being able to go and hit a target from a few hundred yards away. It's satisfying. It takes patience and focus, skill. To me, it's a skill that I just like developing skills. The things that you're interested, you want to be better at it, and so that's one that you can see progress in. It's very easy to make progress in being a shooter, whether it's hitting clays with a shotgun, chances are at first you're not going to be very good, but it's the more you do it, and the more you do it, especially if you've got somebody there that knows what they're doing, that can give you tips and everything, you get better and you see that progress. So yeah, I like it for a few reasons, and then there's that kind of just that feeling of independence, that it's like, hey, if I had to, I could hit an animal and go eat it if it came down to it. And so actually a couple of years ago, I got into hunting. I really enjoy that. That's hard to get into though if you don't know somebody who hunts. And so I'm real grateful for. There's actually a couple guys at the church that got me into it. The first one was Uncle Cal, as so many call him. He took me out pheasant hunting a couple years ago on Thanksgiving. I mean, okay, I have hunted in the past. I mean, so growing up in the country, we had rabbit problems and ground squirrel problems, whatever, and we'd always just shoot them. We'd throw them into the field next door for the coyotes. And one day I was like, how come we never eaten one of these? And so I threw down some plastic on the floor of my garage, and I skinned a rabbit and ate it. It was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, so Uncle Cal got me into bird hunting, and then the next year, Kirk Doty took me out, and I was able to get a deer that year, and then this year I was able to get a few deer too. So yeah, it's satisfying, and in my opinion, if I'm going to eat meat, regardless of how involved I am in that process, me sitting at my dinner table eating it means that it had to die, and so if it has to die in order for me to eat it, why not take full responsibility and kill it yourself? And I know it's not for everybody. I'm not saying everybody needs to hunt if they're going to eat meat, but to me it's like, hey, when you're there and you see a deer die so that you can live, maybe that's dramatic, but seriously, I mean, it gives you that greater appreciation for life, for your own life, for the life of animals in creation. It helps you, I think, to not waste as much. It's so easy to have meat sitting in your fridge that goes bad, and then, oh, no big deal, you throw it out. Well, it's like, no, man, I sat in a tree for 12 hours when it was 15 degrees out, and I shot it. And then I spent, I dragged it out of the woods in the dark, and then I did everything to get it in my freezer. It's like, I'm not wasting that, so it's just satisfying.
Yeah. These are the conversations I don't think people are willing to have all the time. To sit down and just ask you, what makes you do it? What do you get out of it? What do you feel?
Sure.
Before you got to the end part, when you were talking just about shooting guns, but like you could take out the word gun and the way you talked about like skill and appreciation and hard work and success and failure before success, and you could implement any kind of hobby or thing or skill that people do. Like those are all key aspects to me of
preparation
of a life worth living, and what we should all be striving for in everything we do. But so you had gone on quite a. I mean, even at the end, when you're like, it makes you appreciate life. It's like the whole thing to me is important that you have conversations with. And if it's not a gun or that hunting or whatever, it's something else for other people. And so I think everybody needs to be thinking about what is that thing that gives them the appreciation of life or helps them live a full life on a daily basis.
Sure.
I'm going to get into some quotes that I sent you. Our weekly quotes. I sent you 7. I'm going to fly through all 7. You could pause and jump in anytime you want. You don't have to say anything. Again, I get the quotes from books I've read, and then I usually write a little something or other underneath it. Then I send these out to a group if you want them. Hit me up on an email, and then I can start texting them to you. If you're an Instagram person, at DJVonFire, I go ahead and I put the quote and everything that I write on there as well. So if you want to be involved in that, go ahead and hit me up on that. Check the description down below. The first one, to change is to act greater than how we feel.
Yeah, sure.
Good one. I mean, thanks for your reply. So my point was, what my quote here is, I don't care if you don't feel like it, do it anyways. So
yeah.
Sometimes you got to act greater than in the moment. Oh, I don't feel like it. Keep life in balance. I think your whole just discussion today, if people play this back, it was about balance. Anything to add to that, or you?
No, balance is important. I mean, you before we started recording, you were asking about work, and it's like, not that I'm opposed to talking about work, but I don't care to talk about work because it's like I spend so much of my day doing that already. I don't want to be spending my non-working time thinking about it. Yeah. It's like, how many people have I worked with in the past that's all they do, that's all they know, and it's like, what is that giving you? Is that some people a false sense of security, or it's a source of pride for many. For many, it's their identity. It's like, I don't get that. I never really have, and so balance is important. You work to live, don't live to work. Or again, other people take that to the opposite extreme, where they don't do anything. It's like, that's not good either. So.
Balance. I have a boss. I had a boss that, or this phrase, work hard, play hard. Like, when you're the business, make sure you're working hard, but when you're playing, you can play hard too. I mean, it's whatever you're doing. To me, I give 100%. How can I think, feel, and behave differently to produce the effect or the results I want? I wrote, once you decide what you really want, you need to find out what it takes to get you there.
I agree. A lot of people I know, they'll say, they say things that they want, but then they don't do anything to. It's like, I don't want to hear you one more time say what you want until you do something. It's like, you're wasting my time where I would rather listen to nothing than you say again what you're gonna do or what you want to do. It's like, do it. Anyways,
you stole that out of my brain right there. People try to avoid discomfort. This is the one you said before we started you wanted to talk to. People try to avoid discomfort.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree. I'm not a Star Wars guy.
Yeah.
But there's a iconic line everybody knows: "Do or do not. There is no try." I don't think people try to avoid discomfort. I think people do avoid discomfort.
Yeah. All right, everybody hit the minus the back 10 seconds, back 10 seconds. Watch that again, because you threw you for a loop right there. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason I think I do a lot of the things that I do, because it's like, there's a saying that soft times breed soft men. And because my life is so easy, I have to do things to counteract my cushy lifestyle. I've we're losing ground as a human race. 100 years ago, people worked with their hands. They had to survive more than we do now. It's like, so again, I mean, they didn't have the option to avoid discomfort. They couldn't just microwave their food. They had to, they couldn't just do that stuff. And so, um, do things, I think, to push yourself to be better, and yeah, people don't try to avoid discomfort. They do avoid discomfort.
That's a big quote. This guy to my left over here, I asked him to do something. He goes, I'll try. And that was a phrase last year that drove me crazy to hear you say, no, don't try. I want you to do it.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you're even going to be successful in it, but I just want you to do it. And now their twist on the word try could be a little bit different, but
sure.
I do love that you brought that to a point. We should have talked a lot more before now, but we got a lot of the same.
That's right.
Same mindset, which I think is cool. Jump into the next one. Don't worry about yesterday. Think about today getting better. You already kind of addressed that with saying, obviously you want to learn from your past, but worry about today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. So I didn't really share much about my kind of personal testimony in coming to the Lord, but I'll tell you what. Before I did, I absolutely had a victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was more between me and God. You know, it's like, you know, God, I'm going to church every Sunday, and I'm not cussing too much, and you know, I'm not doing these bad things. I am doing these good. You know, I sometimes read my Bible and I sometimes pray. How come you're not making my life better? You know, it was like, you know, God was sending this plight on me, you know, for no reason. And anyways, so I one of the things that occurred after I got saved would say that kind of attitude of victimization um, disappeared. And you know, having experienced it and now turning away from it, it's first of all liberating, but it's also very aggravating now too to see people who live with that mentality. It's like, oh well, you know, my life sucks because you know my mom and dad didn't do this for me. It's like you're in your 30s and you're complaining about your mom and dad. Like, you know, how how do you explain that? Mm-hmm. And so people, I hear this all the time. You know, people complaining about this thing that happened to them or that thing that, you know, oh well that I didn't get that job offer because they have it against, you know, they're out to get me. It's like, no, they're not. You know, move on. Okay. Um, yeah. Yesterday can't change. You know.
Yeah.
So.
That's another good one. These are awesome. Everything is figure outable. My quote in there is, well, first of all, sticking out to me, it says, "Start to search for truth." That's awesome. But I figure I made it this far, so I must have figured some things out. What's to say that I won't just keep figuring things out?
Pretty much.
Then the last one, exclamation point, is achieve something.
Yeah, that's another thing I would say. You know, again, another big part of my testimony is, I would say, my, you know, when I was in junior high and high school and then into college, I was battling depression. You know, I didn't know it at the time because it wasn't something really people were talking about or anything. Um, for most of that time, I was suicidal as well. Um, and you know, if you're in that spot, it sucks. But doing, you know, so many people, you know, use that as an excuse to be mopey. And again, you know, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that. So I'm not saying that I know everything. But it's like, if you don't, we might talk about this, or it might have been in one of these quotes. But it's like, yeah, if you don't feel like doing something, like tough.
Yeah.
You know, you have to push through that because of the satisfaction you get. You know, if you're in a dark place and the best you can do is get out of your sweatpants and put on a pair of jeans, it's like, do it. Mm-hmm. You know, that's that. If you're that low, that's an achievement. You know, and it's like you have to, I think, have even the smallest thing to keep you going. You know, and maybe you're conquering the world and you have no idea what I was just talking about. Oh, what's that like? You know, then for you, achieving something might look way different. But I think that's important. Achieve something.
I appreciate your vulnerability there and going back a little bit. You talked about your testimony just a minute. We were going to say a little bit more about that, but then you're like, well, you're not a doctor, but no, but you're coming to them from where you've been, from an experience. Sure. So that's what I appreciate there. You talked about achieving something, however small, putting on a pair of pants. Put on a pair
of pants.
So Admiral William McRaven,
is that in here?
U.S. Navy retired. No.
Okay.
But it made me think of it, and you probably know what I'm talking about. He wrote a book called "Make Your Bed."
Yeah.
Little things that can change your life and maybe the world.
Yeah.
It's a quick read. Did you read it, or you just know what I'm talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. He did a graduation speech for some college, and that went viral. And then he turned around and then wrote a book. And the first thing is, what do they do in all of armed forces? It's you make your bed. Why? Because you've achieved something then.
Right.
The second you roll out of bed.
Are you familiar with Jordan Peterson?
Well, I was kind of you just stole my.
I know
he's
got a thing. Clean your room.
Yes.
He says clean your room. And that's, I think, more he's addressing the balance. So he talks a lot about the balance between chaos and order. What, you guys talking about this or something?
I love Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
I've watched everything you can watch on YouTube, but I
you're
my volleyball team.
Okay.
That life is about chaos and order, but continue.
Yeah, and I think it's inappropriate to strive for either of those things. He talks a little bit about finding the balance, between the two, and so he's talking about this concept, clean your room. You're already familiar with it, where if you can't do something as simple as clean your room, what gives you authority to give? Why should anybody listen to you if you can't even clean your room? If you can't even control something so small as the space that you sleep in, it's like Jesus says, suppose a brother has a speck of sawdust in his eye, and you have a plank in your own. You wouldn't say to your brother, here, let me take that speck of sawdust out of your eye. He says, take the plank out of your own eye first so that you can see. Similarly,
Yeah, that's even better one.
Clean your room.
That's even better one.
Yeah, I mean.
Achieving it. You achieve something.
Right.
Start with your bed, then your room, then wash your face, get the specks out of your eyes, but you can build on that. And even if it's for a day, if it's once a day, and you just do that for a month, you do it. And then you wake up that next month and you say, what can I do next? That was my setup last year. Every month we challenged each other. I've talked about challenges before. Joe DeCenzo on our podcast talked about challenges. Now you have a Monee Proud. Before I talk about my shirt, you have a Monee Proud, and you could speak to it for 30 seconds, or you're just saying you're proud of where you've been raised and how you've been raised.
Sure.
Or maybe how you've learned and grown from how you were raised, however you want to word that.
Yeah, I think it's not that Monee is more special than anywhere else, because it's not, but I think it's a matter of, where you came from shapes who you are, and again, good, bad, or otherwise. I heard an illustration years ago where somebody, we're familiar with the concept of baggage, emotional baggage, spiritual baggage, whatever. That said, you can think of it as baggage that is weighing you down and slowing, that you're dragging with you, or similarly, I was talking about backpacking earlier. It's full of what I need to survive. It's full of tools that I know how to use that are going to get me to where I want to go. So you can think of it as again, either baggage holding you back, or a backpack full of tools getting you where you're going. So similarly, I'm from Monee. My parents, they moved there when I was young, and they raised me. They did the best job they could. They left a lot of gaps and insufficiencies that other people were able to fill in, or I was able to identify as an adult. And, that shaped who I am. I had a pretty dark past as a young man, dealt with a lot, but without that, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be where I am, and I wouldn't be as equipped to minister to those maybe who are going through now what I went through then. There's a Bible verse I like that Paul writes from 2 Corinthians 1, 3 and 4, I believe. It says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in any trouble, so that we can comfort those with the same comfort we ourselves have received from God." And when I had first gotten saved, I was like, man, if I went through everything I just went through, 8 years of struggling to not kill myself, constantly feeling alone, like I didn't belong, if I went through all that so that I could help one person, how can I say that wasn't worth it?
Mm-hmm. Man, that's powerful. I mean, that summarizes our whole conversation. You're wise beyond your years. I'll say that.
Wish I could take credit, man.
But the fact that, and kind of wraps it up when I'm saying, like, I got to know this guy. I want to get to know more because of the impact he's having on my sons, and then the other young men that you have impact, and all youth that you're able
I say, and girls.
Yeah,
I think it's
and
important
girls you
that,
have.
that young ladies know what to expect from a man.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of guys doing damage, you know, to perception of, you know, that girls have in our society. And it's like, hey man, if I can be one good example of what a lady should expect.
Yeah, that's good.
You know.
That's good. Absolutely.
Anyways, sorry.
No, that was good. I was working my way like there, and then like we didn't even talk much about it, but yeah, that aspect of it too, being an example for them as well. My shirt, just going into the next month here. So I don't know if you could see that. It says burpees hate you too. So burpees are quite the workout where you fall to the ground, you do a push up, you jump up, you try to touch the sky, then that's called one, and then you do it all over again. So I'm trying to raise money for Stop Soldier Suicide. So I think we all have a soldier that we know of, or once removed from a friend or whatnot that is fighting for us for our freedoms that we kind of just talked about for the last hour. But and so I'm doing 2,000 burpees in March. So breaking up, that's 65 or so a day. And so I'm going to try to put a link in the description, or you can reach out to my email. But any kind of, you got $1 to donate or $5, it's going towards a great cause to stop soldier suicide. So I'll be hitting the burpees this next month if you'll be thinking about me. And the quote that I give every time, one life, just one. Why are we not running like we are on fire towards our wildest dreams, by Jim Quick. Alexander, Wayne, Phillips, I appreciate your time. Time food.
Likewise.
This is our DJV, Dinner with DJV, our first official. We'll see how we like it. Matt Boomsma, I apologize that I not get you dinner. You'll have to come on for a second one. Have a good one.